So AJ Styles did deliver on his word, and he did make a gun for tap out. And frankly, I have mixed feelings on it, which I will get to all in due course. But yeah, to kind of take you through this latest episode of Raw. This episode of Raw kicked off with some little bit of chaos in the women's tag team division. We had basically the team of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, or Rio as they're going by now, opening up the show. Obviously, we've seen them kind of like intertwined with the kind of like a feud with the Kabuki Warriors and Lash Legend and Nia Jackson, by kind of extension of that Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. And so, there was going to be kind of like shenanigans here, but to my surprise, we basically had other tag teams coming out, but none of the aforementioned were on that list. So we had Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez coming out to congratulate the new tag team champions, but also to kind of remind Liv Morgan to remind that she was actually part of the tag team champions and she didn't actually lose the titles. We had the Kabuki Warriors coming out here, and we had Bailey as well coming out. I realised I made a mistake there because I said none of the aforementioned come out, and the Kabuki Warriors were one of the aforementioned. So yeah, that's a good start to the video. But yes, just skip over that little. But so yeah, we had the Kabuki Warriors come out, and this was followed by Bailey and Lyra Valkyria coming out, inserting themselves into this as well. So naturally, this led to a triple tag team match for the number one contender spot, and frankly, the ladies, I think they might have delivered the match of the night, to be honest with you. And I thought that this was a fantastic match. There wasn't a part of me that believed the Kabuki Warriors were going to win this, just because it wouldn't kind of make too much sense to kind of like go back to that well, really. So, and I thought that between Bailey and Lyra Valkyria and Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez, it was a bit of a flip of a coin, do you know what I mean? I kind of felt, because I think both of those tag teams going up against Rio would have been intriguing. But if I had to go lean one way or the other, I would have gone for Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez being the correct decision, just because you've got that classic like babyface versus heel then, and that's inevitably ended up what happened. So the fact that obviously Lash Legend and Nia Jax, Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss didn't really get a look in here, it kind of makes me even more confident that we are going to basically just use Lash Legend and Nia Jax to kind of split up Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, and they're going to go off into the single tag teams. But yeah, I do kind of feel like that's where we're going with it. I still hold on to this sort of little bit of a fantasy booking in my mind that somewhere along the line we are going to get a TLC match between these teams. I just think that would just be the best possibility that you could do on this. And I think that it would make a whole lot of sense, because I feel like obviously with the belts being on Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, then I feel like both of those are obviously really over, okay? So I don't think that, so I think maybe something like a TLC or something like that would be a way that you could dethrone them without them actually, without either of them necessarily actually taking the pin. I think that's another layer to it, but we will see. We'll see how it all goes on. Obviously, but as things stand, we got Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez being the number one contenders for those tag team belts against Rio. Frankly, I'm all for it. So we basically had Finn Balor, who was kind of, speaking of Liv Morgan, we had Finn Balor coming out, who was kind of like coerced into inserting himself into the title competitors going up against CM Punk, because Liv Morgan had basically called him backstage, basically playing video games, and Liv Morgan came along like she was his mum and being like, "What the hell are you doing? All you do is sit around and play video games. You don't see the rest of us doing that. Just get up off your ass and actually do something." So he goes off. He interrupts CM Punk's promo and basically challenges CM Punk for the title. Yeah, I mean, I feel mixed about this, okay? Because on the one hand, I think that Finn Balor is a great athlete. I think that he's similar to Drew McIntyre. He's been on just this whole downward trajectory. He's been loss after loss after loss, and and yeah, I do think that a push for Finn Balor would be welcome, okay? But at the same time, it does feel a bit odd, right? And this isn't the first time that actually Raw did this tonight on this episode, Raw, where basically I'm not a big fan of when you just have like loss. Oh, and suddenly they find themselves just inserted into this title opportunity, right? But yeah, obviously they are both they're both obviously phenomenal athletes. I think they'll put on a good show. I think it'll be there's a lot of I think obviously the in-ring ability that will be on display there will be just absolutely fantastic. I mean, a big part of this was why this is happening is because as the next week's show is going to be in Belfast. We had there has been this narrative that after obviously Drew McIntyre dethroned Cody Rhodes, and it could well be that Finn Balor could dethrone CM Punk. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that is what's going to happen. But yeah, we will see. We had like I said, this wasn't the first time that Raw had done this, and this was probably the worst offender of it, because we had this backstage segment with Jey Uso as well. The Alpha Academy came along, and they they basically challenged the Usos to a tag team. So, and I just kind of like go, look. I love Otis, okay? I love Tozawa, right? I just think they're both absolutely fantastic. I love seeing them on my TV, okay? But there's no way, right? Do you know what I mean? That they are going up against a tag team champions and going, well, can we have a shot? They should go, well, no, you can't have a shot. What are you talking about? Like, what have you done to earn this title shot? You know what I mean? Earn your spot. You know what I mean? I'm a little nitpicky about it. I know it is just me kind of being a little bit nerdy about buying into wrestling maybe more than I should do. Do you know what I mean? But it just kind of, it does bug me, and it doesn't necessarily, I suppose it doesn't really feel like I suppose the biggest gripe of it is in this case, like, unlike CM Punk and the Finn Balor, where I think that, you know, that could be although there's not any part of me that believes CM Punk is losing that. You know, like I said, I think that it will be a banger match to watch, right? But yeah, when you have the Usos going up against the Alpha Academy, you know, you're just like, really, do you know what I mean? It doesn't spark any intrigue. It doesn't really spark any. Just so yeah, it just yeah, so it just didn't really land for me. Okay, so we basically had another segment here where Raquel Rodriguez came out. She had basically we had Stephanie Valquer come out very unadvisedly to take on Raquel Rodriguez. We had Raquel Rodriguez going straight back to that injured ankle. So yeah, I mean, it does just make me more and more confident that we are just going to lean into this where, you know, we've seen this happen before, obviously with Tiffany Stratton against Jade Cargill. We've seen it numerous times with Jey Uso with you know, having the ribs bandaged and stuff. And I think we're just going to go with that here, do you know what I mean? Where we're going to basically tell this story where Stephanie Valkyrie is going to be this very proud, this very defiant champion who wants to defend it, and she's going to go out there unadvisedly and just get squashed by Raquel Rodriguez. I do just feel that's going to be the angle that we're going to go, and then we're just going to, you know, see Stephanie Valkyrie kind of try and chase that title back. So yeah, we had we also with next week's Raw being in Belfast. We also had the announcement that there was going to be a rematch between Becky Lynch and Maxine Dupree. I don't really have an appetite to see this again, but at the same time, wasn't really surprised by, you know, by the way the last match ended and all of that. I'm not really surprised that they are kind of like running it back, and obviously with it being in Belfast, you know, it's sort of like it seemed a bit of like kind of low hanging fruit, I guess, there. So yeah, basically, we had the banger match between Javon Evans and Bravo Americano here. Again, you know, I kind of hope that they just, you know, move away from Javon Evans feuding with the Americanas now, and, you know, just kind of because, like I said, there is a part of me where when during these matches, as great as the in-ring performances are, as phenomenal as Javon Evans is, you know, I do just kind of like feel like, you know, there's no way, you know, that they're pulling any of the Americanos over, obviously, Javon Evans. So, you know, let's move on. Let's just, let's just get some real kind of enticing stuff going with this Javon Evans push. So we had, so we basically, we also had Bron Breakker interfere in the Visions tag team match as well. Interestingly enough, with this was that we had basically we had sort of started to establish Logan Paul and Austin Theory as being the tag team kind of representatives of the Vision here, and we had basically and yeah, that's kind of the way that I kind of like felt that they were going to proceed with this. But interestingly, we mixed it up here. We had Austin Theory teaming up with Bronson Reed for the tag team. My mind had just gone completely blank. I forget who they were battling there. Was it the Luchadors? I think was it? I believe so. Was it Penta? And yeah. So yeah. Basically, I was really enjoying this match just from an in-ring perspective. But yeah, we had Bron Breakker come out. We had to cause the DQ. This had caused Adam Pearce to come out because there had been a segment earlier on in the show where he was turning around to Paul Heyman and going, if Bron Breakker shows his face, and you better show him the door because I'm not in the mood for his shenanigans tonight. So yeah, he came out. And then it was basically just a little bit of a kind of like having Adam Pearce in this sort of like piggy in the middle section where basically while he was attending to Bron Breakker, Bronson Reed climbs to the top rope and tsunamis. I forget who it was. No, was it Penta? Was it? I can't remember now. But yeah, he delivers this tsunami. So Adam Pearce then goes over to attend to Bronson Reed, and while he's attending to Bronson Reed, Bron Breakker gets in the ring and just spears the other guy. So it just kind of like, so we basically, what this had built to was that it had Adam Pearce had basically grabbed Bron Brekker's arm and pulled him around. Bron Breakker had basically grabbed Adam Pearce by the scruff of the neck and pushed him into the corner, and basically he was just so he was basically suspended. And I thought that this was a really nice little story to tell, because for one, if anything, it kind of propels Bron Breakker even more off the back of that defeat to CM Punk, because we had, if that was even possible, I wasn't even sure that was even possible, but here we are, right? So we had basically, but yeah, this just has the possibility of just portraying Bron Breakker as just this real big, badass, unhinged, just absolute eater of worlds. And I absolutely hope that they show this as a catalyst. I want him to be completely off the leash and just be spearing Adam Pearce and just going totally crazy, maybe even escalated to a point where even like Triple H has to become a character in all this, and he has to step in, just really go kind of really a bit crazy with it. I'm all for that, right? I'm all for a little bit of anarchy being released on Raw through Bron Breakker, right? But also what it kind of does is, for now, it does put Bron Breakker on a bit of a leash, where in a sense, what I mean by that is it kind of creates this space between him and CM Punk, where CM Punk can basically just go off and obviously have these little side quests, like obviously the Finn Balor match next week. And so yeah, I thought that this was a really smart move, and they'd already planted the seeds as well into how they were going to get round this and how they were going to, because we had basically this backstage segment after where Paul Heyman had just turned into like this really shifty lawyer where he was going to go, well, you're saying that you suspended Bron Breakker for putting his hands on you, but technically you put your hands on him first, so I think we may have something here in terms of legality. So we already kind of started to kind of plan to see how we're going to kind of get all around this, but there is a little bit of a cynical part of me that feels like I'm just going to drag this suspension of Bron Breakker out just long enough that we can have Royal Rumble pass by, and so he's going to kind of like miss that spot, so we can kind of like maybe kind of like building up to Elimination Chamber, and that just kind of like ends up as a catapult into the WrestleMania picture. But yeah, absolutely, I think that this was a really smart move by WWE here. So yeah, basically we get into obviously the main event, which we had obviously between Gunther and AJ Styles. We had basically AJ Styles doing these little backstage segments. Prior to it, they were saying that he was going to teach Gunther a lesson about respect, and he was going to make him tap out and all of this. And look, I thought that this was a great match. Yes, there were a little bit of mistakes of AJ slipping on the top rope and all of this. Like I said, it's not something that I'm going to, really kind of be really critical of wrestlers for, because they're human beings at the end of the day. And when you've got many people, throwing their bodies around as much, there are, week in and week out, you're gonna have mistakes, do you know what I mean? And AJ Styles has been doing this for 20 odd years, you know what I mean? I do kind of think that maybe I would have maybe liked to see them maybe lean into that maybe as a story where we could have basically, we could have maybe in this alternative reality where we could have had Gunther win this clean, and this has AJ Styles kind of question himself whether he's still got it, and he has to, kind of go on this little journey and back to his roots and all, tell that kind of classic story maybe, and just go, well, I have been doing this, I have been making mistakes, you saw me come off the top rope and, the other week, and all of this, and maybe just play into that, similar to how they kind of did with Jey Uso a little bit. And just have him kind of question himself and have him kind of maybe have to go back to the well. And, I thought that was maybe an angle, and maybe they will still go down this, who knows. But yeah, let's just get to the main thing that people are talking about, which was, so we had basically... we had AJ Styles obviously apply the Russia. We had, and then before how we were seeing it in Lifetime, he then just broke a hold and just got up and celebrated like he was some robot that had just malfunctioned, right? But then we were kind of like, what's going on? Do you know what I mean? And it was only on the replay, but we had seen that basically Gunther had delivered this sneaky little tap during the hold, but the referee was blindsided to it because he had just done this sneaky little tap on the side of AJ's butt. So we had basically gone. So the referee was blindsided by this, right? And so all of this kind of like distraction and confusion allowed Gunther to deliver the powerbomb and pick up the win, right? And it allowed him to kind of just go off and go wah ha ha, and right. So I had so I feel mixed about this, right? And let me talk through it. And I appreciate that I'm going to kind of tie myself in all sorts of knots here, right? Because I have so many conflicting thoughts about this. So if you can kind of stick with me through all this and follow what I'm kind of trying to say, then absolutely absolute kudos to you, right? Because I know that I'm going to go on quite a contradictory journey here as I kind of try and feedback my thought processes on all of this, the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of that, right? So yeah, I felt conflicted about it, and let's start with what I thought was good about this, because I did think that it was a smart way to have to kind of like lean into obviously what AJ Styles was going to say. Well, I was going to tap out, I was going to make Gunther tap out and all of this, and Gunther being like, oh well, you did, but ha ha. And I thought it was, just a reality. It was quite a smart, little quite innovative way, right, for him to kind of get out of a cab crusher, right. So it does kind of elongate the feud, right? So we had basically, because I knew a few of us were surprised that they were going to do this match quite so soon, right? And we had basically, and then it kind of we had kind of figured that it was a bit of a no-brainer thinking about it further because this was in Germany. So it was all just a little bit so it made perfect sense why they would do that, because that crowd were just going to be crazy, and they absolutely did. Kudos to the German crowd here, by the way. But both in Berlin and Dusseldorf. I think that we could maybe it was quite a good way to maybe get a bit more mileage out of this feud, so we can take it through to what we all believe is going to be the end result, which is where we are going to get a retirement match, right? And Gunther is going to be the guy to retire AJ Styles. It just kind of makes sense. It's in the stars, isn't it? So yeah, there were things I liked about, and honestly, just as a kind of a fan who wants to be entertained, when Gunther goes off and just basically laughing like a maniacal villain. There was a part of me that was laughing with him, right? There was a part of me that was able to go along with it, go, ha ha ha, Gunther, you old scamp, right? But despite all of that, and also, I suppose, another little positive, maybe, and I don't really have any basis for this. This is just maybe, pure hyperbole, I suppose. But there's been this narrative where we were supposed to just forget that Gunther tapped out to Jey Uso at WrestleMania, right? Which was never an argument that I ever really agreed with. I don't think we were ever meant to just forget about that. I don't think there was any sort of like retcon in here with that. But I did just maybe interpret it that the story we were telling that we had basically that Gunther did tap out to Jey Uso at WrestleMania, but then with all those chants from the fans that you tapped out. And we had basically, and that was kind of a little, we were going to flip that and let that be Gunther's trump card, right? Where he could be like, yes, I did tap out to Jey Uso, but then I came back bigger and badder and just became big, and I ended up tapping out your hero John Cena. I made him do the one thing that he said he would never do, right? And so, that is just a much, much bigger trump card than, you tapped out to Jey Uso at WrestleMania, right? That is just, and the one thing you could do to really justify it was to just, make this, to just suddenly revert Gunther to how he was kind of maybe earlier on, where he was just this big, bad eater of worlds type heel, right? So I do kind of feel like we had basically, so maybe there was this, this kind of rationale with the WWE creative where they were like, look, the fans are still chanting it, the fans are still going to chant, you tap out, you tap out, and there's nothing like we can do about it, so let's just lean into it, right? And maybe that's an angle as well, right? But yeah, regardless, despite all my attempts to rationalize this decision, it is odd, right? It is absolutely an odd decision because, like I said, I do think the general consensus here was that we were just going to, strap a rocket to Gunther here and just make him this real big badass, just this eater of worlds, right? And what we kind of essentially got was him winning kind of sneaky, kind of like dirty Dominic Mysterio kind of way, which Gunther has never been that type of heel, right? And it just, I don't know, I suppose all of this, I think maybe the critics of this decision wouldn't be quite as vocal about it if it wasn't for the fact that obviously what happened in Gunther's match against John Cena as well. I think that's added fuel to it because there is, like I said, this idea of that was a decision that kind of sucked the air out of a lot of fandom. And I think the only way you could justify that is to just make Gunther this big badass, this big like eater of worlds type thing. And instead we got this sort of like little dirty Dominic Mysterio kind of heel, right? And I don't mean that disparagingly to Dirty Dom. I love Dirty Dom, but Gunther's never been that, and I don't think he should be that, right? So yeah, it was just an odd decision. But yeah, like I said, only it is going to be that we are going to it is going to be for better or worse. It is going to be a way to elongate this feud. I don't, and I think that this is probably, if anything, I would probably say this is probably going to be a trilogy, right? Because I can't see the next match between them being AJ's retirement match, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe AJ Styles comes out next week and goes, you know what? This match has made me realise I'm done, right? And who knows, right? And I'm not going to pass any judgment. I mean, AJ Styles has been phenomenal, no pun intended, but he has been just a phenomenal, and I have enjoyed every second. He's a wrestler I've grown up with watching, an athlete that I have absolute utmost respect for and admiration for. So he's earned his retirement, right? He can retire whenever he wants, right? Do you know what I mean? You do that, and wish AJ Styles all the best in his retirement. But and maybe that could be WrestleMania, maybe that could be end of the year. Who knows, right? Like I said, that is all down to AJ Styles, right? Let him bow out when he wants to bow out, right? But yeah, I just feel it in me water that that this isn't going to this is going to be more elongated than that, at least stretched out to WrestleMania, right? And yeah, I do just think that we are probably going to get a trilogy. That third one is probably going to be when AJ Styles does decide to retire, which means that we got another match in between. And I mean, just looking at how like WWE does matches, does Gunther win that second one as well, and then win the retirement match and retire AJ Styles? I don't know, but there's like, because like I said, just looking at how WWE the books matches, there's a certain logic I would state that the odds are in AJ Styles' favour of winning the rematch, right? And again, that just kind of buys into that whole, but that's not the type of heel that Gunther should be. He should be this big bad eater of worlds, you know. Which yeah, so yeah, I absolutely get, you know, people's confusion on it and dislike about it, you know. But yeah, like I said, it's we'll just have to see how it all kind of like materializes. But yeah, like I said, a mixed bag on it, a mixed feelings, and you like I said, um, we'll have to see what comes of it in, you know, in the coming weeks, and you know that ultimately I'm sure will sway me more one way or the other on it. But on the whole, guys, I thought this was a solid match of Raw. You know, again, you know, like I said, the main event here, for better or worse, and how it ended, it has provided the WWE with a massive talking point, alongside obviously the talking point we got with SmackDown main event. So to that end, WWE did a great job. You know, if this was just, you know, get media attention and get people talking and stuff like that, they've certainly got a 10 out of 10. They've certainly delivered that. So yeah, I think that WWE have approached 2026 hard. So yeah, that pretty much it. So yeah, that pretty much concludes my review of this episode of Raw. So yeah, thank you guys for taking the time to take the time to listen to this video and my thoughts on it. And that finally brings us kind of, what makes us, we're all kind of, I think, actually caught up with WWE now. Over the holidays, I'd taken a bit, I'd kind of fallen behind with it. So anyone who's tuning into my channel for WWE content, I apologize to you guys for that. But yeah, ultimately, yeah, like I said, if you enjoyed this video, you want to see more, don't forget to ring a bell for notifications. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And please feel free to let me know down in the comment section about what your thoughts on this episode of Raw was, what your thoughts were on the AJ and Gunther stuff, you know, what your little fan theories are going forward, you know, all of our fun stuff. Let me know down in the comment section. And until next time, I will see you guys on the next video. You guys take care.